Solving quadratics for the second night in a row. Some of these are incomplete equations, but again, we are doing the same thing for every single one. We are factoring, we are solving for x. So put the date on it as 3/26. And your first one is the difference of perfect squares. And we know that the only way we can get x squared is x times x. And when we have a negative 25, but no middle term, no x term, we know that we have a perfect square here as minus 5 plus 5. And so that will give us, when we add the minus 5 plus 5, the 0x term, the term that they don't list. So I set both of these terms equal to 0. And I solve for x on both sides. So our first root is x equals 5. Our second root is x equals negative 5. And if I wanted to write it as a solution set, I could write it as negative 5 and 5 with the squiggly brackets. Example number 2 asks us to solve for x. And we have a 7y squared on the one side, but we need the equation to be equal to 0. So let's subtract 7y squared from both sides. That'll give me 0 here. So I have 0 equals negative 4y squared plus 36. And I can see that I have a greatest common factor of negative 4. So I will factor out the negative 4 first. I'm dividing the first term by negative 4, which leaves me with y squared. And I'm dividing the positive 36 by negative 4, which leaves me with a minus 9. I know that I can factor y squared minus 9 is perfect squares, minus 3 plus 3. And now I'm going to solve. I can ignore the negative 4 as a term to solve for because there's no x or y. And so really I'm only solving y minus 3 equals 0, y plus 3 equals 0. So I add 3 to both sides to get y is equal to 3. I subtract 3 to both sides to get y is equal to negative 3. Those are my roots. Those are my, solving for y in the instructions. And the solution set is negative 3 plus 3. Here's a Regents practice question. It's asking for the larger root of this equation. And so they've already factored it for me. They are looking for me to set both of these equal to 0 and find the bigger value. Well, this comes out to be a negative 4. And this one, the term is x equals 3. So 3 is the larger value, choice C. This should be number 2 of the Regents review practice. It says, what is the solution set of the equation 3x squared minus 34x minus 24 equals 0? Solution set, remember, is the squiggly brackets. And so I don't see 3 as a greatest common factor. I don't see 3 going into 34x. So it must be that I'm just going to have 2 binomials, and the first term 3x and x, because 3x times x will give me 3x squared. Now I need to do like a trial and error for the factors of negative 24. What are the factors of negative 24? I'm going to list all of them. And then when I multiply these two, I'll get the minus 24. But when I add one pair of these together, I will get the negative 34. And some of you might be thinking, how am I going to get a negative 34 with these numbers? Well, you can't forget about that 3x that you have there. So now I just kind of do like a guess and check. And if I put, say I start with this last pair, -4 and 6. If I put the -4 here and the 6 here, then I get 18 when I multiply -4. So that's not going to work. But if I switch them around and I put the 6 here and the -4 here, I get -12 and 6. That's not going to work. So that might not be the one that I'm looking for to use. What if I try the -3 and the +8? Put the -3 here, the +8 here. That gives me 24 minus 3. That's not going to work. But if I put the 8 here and the -3 here, I get -9 and 8. That's also not going to work. And this is really the only way that you can just keep going with a guess and check. How about we try the 2 and the -2 and the 12. If I put a -2 here and a 12 here, I get 3 times 12 is 36x. And I get -2 times x is -2x. Well, that gives me 34, but it gives me a positive 34. So maybe I just need to switch my signs and it'll work. So instead of it being -2 and 12, maybe it's +2 and -12. That'll give me -36x plus 2x. And that gives me a -34x. So those are the terms that I'm looking for. So now I can go back to solving. I have 3x plus 2 equals 0. And I have x minus 12 equals 0. And so I subtract 2 from both sides. I get 3x equals -2. I divide by 3 on both sides, and I get x is equal to a -2/3 for my one root. The other side is plus 12, and I get x equals positive 12. So my solution set is a -2/3, comma, 12. Very difficult factoring question. Very difficult solution set to find. So this is the notes that are labeled 12-4. This is extra practice of solving quadratics. I would like you to watch notes 12-5 also and fill them out. You were given those on Wednesday of last week, so you should have 12-4 in, I think it was a stapled copy, and then you should have 12-5, which is axis of symmetry and vertex. Please watch that video now.